Hi, I'm Ztarli, and in this video I'll be drawing a Patreon reward for my Patreon Zemper. Just an FYI, I now have a key that will pop up on the left hand side of the screen at the start of each of my videos that just lets you know what the coloured border means around the brush that appears on the right hand side. So you can now be able to tell if I'm using a standard brush that comes with Artflow, or if I'm using my own customized brush, or if I'm using the smudge tool or eraser tool. If you ever want more information or have questions on how I do my art, feel free to ask questions in the comment section below. I'm more than happy to give more detail on exactly what I'm doing if you'd like to know something specific or you're not quite sure what I did at one particular step. Zemper requested as their Patreon reward that I draw a character made up of questions that they asked their friend Ztarli to make them their very own character to use as an icon. So basically they asked them a bunch of questions, mostly based off Day of Dragons things, so they could ask the questions secretly and have them not be aware that they were actually having a picture drawn. This was a bunch of fun to do, to take the questions and actually convert it into a drawing, and it was something that I don't normally draw these particular styles and this particular color, so it was super fun to try something new. I had lots of fun creating the character for them and thinking about what colors to do based on the questions that they had answered. Before deciding to colour this picture, I did look up a couple of references for what black and red birds look like, just so I could get some ideas for colour patterns and stuff. And I did see like the red chested birds and stuff like that, and I liked the idea of having like red underneath. It kind of reminds me of growing up on my farm and when we used to see red belly black snakes. And I'm kind of a fan of snakes, so I just thought like the red underneath the black looked cool. I did do an alternative color palette for this as well, so I do switch the colors around just so Zemper had the choice if they thought the other, like a different way around, looked better or not. But in the end, we both decided that the original colors I had done looked better, and we stuck with those colors when I moved on to painting. Oh, and I should also say I'm very bad at pronouncing lots of things. You may have noticed I can't pronounce my words that well. So when it comes to names, I'm actually really awful at it. So I'm really sorry if I pronounce either of your names wrong, Zemper or Ztarli. I do my best, but sometimes I just don't get it right. So apologies if I pronounce them wrong. I've now moved on to the shading stage, so I'm just putting down some color onto a layer and then changing the properties of the layer and just blurring things in and making starting the process of making the colors look like actual feathers. When I first saw the questions and saw that they preferred feathered dragons, I was kind of a little bit worried. Feathers for me are notoriously difficult to paint. They are one of the pictures I spent the longest time on in recent times was the micro feathered dragon, which was completely covered in feathers, and it did take me a long time to figure out how the feathers will go and how you actually meant to shade feathers so they actually look like feathers. So I was a little bit worried about this going into it, but actually once I started doing it, I actually had a lot of fun and it wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty easy for me to put down the feathers. I guess it was because I spent so long on that original micro feather dragon picture that I'd already learnt how to do feathers, and I very quickly got the sort of feel of the feathers down and just continued that through the picture, and I was really happy with how the feathers came out. So I'm really glad this was a feathered dragon. It was lots of fun and I got to try different colors and do feathers again, and this time it didn't take me like 6 hours, so yay. For those who'd like to know, I'll just give you a quick rundown on how I actually do feathers. So normally I'll have done flat colors first, so basically the middle tone color of whatever you want the feathers to be. And then I do normally do shadows first, so I just sort of do a rough sort of M shapes, zigging across the character, and then I'll get actually a lighter color with quite a fuzzy brush, and I'll paint underneath that ziggy darker color. And you may notice already, but I use the smudge tool a lot during this, so I then smudge out the lighter color downwards, and then I come back in with a dark color from the top. So you end up with this light color that's actually coming from underneath the feathers, with the dark feathers actually being on top. This doesn't happen all the time with feathers. It's something that you can see in a lot of birds, especially when they're ruffled. This is usually because the fluffy sort of end of the feathers are quite often light in color. So if the feathers are ruffled, you sort of can see a bit of the lighter part of the feathers underneath. Of course, this doesn't happen all the time, especially if you're not ruffled. If the feathers are laying flat, you wouldn't see that. But I don't know, it's just kind of fun to do them this way. And I think it looks quite effective, and it's quite obviously feathers. I've also learned not to detail feathers too much. So you can see I've actually done I did actually do some lines on the larger feathers. I started to detail them, and then I actually go back later and remove that detail, because I think it just becomes too distracting, and you can already tell these are feathers without needing to put all those little extra lines all over each and every single feather. It was fun doing the antlers like this too. Originally, the first sketch I did just had sort of like antlers sticking straight back, sort of more like horns, which I did find, I like that style myself better. But I think the antlers pointing forward like this, I guess when you think about antlers, you think more about ones that look like this. And I think it actually frames the whole picture a lot better with them pointing forward. I actually think these kind of horns or antlers can actually be a lot of fun. I sort of imagine if your dragon wore any jewelry or anything like that, it could be fun to sort of drape them over the horns. Or, maybe if they're a water-dwelling dragon, they'd have like reeds hanging off them. They're just kind of interesting to have them this way, and you can do a lot with them because of the way they sort of shape forward and can quite easily have things hung off them. I think antlers this way are actually a lot more fun than I'd originally thought about, as in most of my dragons I always have horns going straight back with sort of more, I guess, a more traditional sort of shape. But I guess my lesson here is I should experiment more with shapes and try different things, and maybe I'll find something fun and new to try out. You may have noticed that the original eye color of the dragon was like orangey, sort of ambery colors, which I just picked to sort of complement the rest of the dragon's colors, as Ztarli hadn't answered or been asked any questions relating to eye color. So that's what I went with originally. But when we looked back through the questions to see if there was anything there that could give me a clue as to what colors I should do the eyes, I found that with the skins of the shadow scales they liked, there was a pattern there with the kind of color eyes those dragons had, which was like a purple or a bluey sort of color in most cases. So we decided to change it to like bluey purpley eyes, which actually looks really good. And I really love how the eyes turn out in this picture as well. Let's just be honest, I like how this whole thing turned out. I was really happy with it. All of the painting went really well. I like all the colors and how they look. And if they need to be changed, I can easily change them. So Ztarli, if you end up wanting different colored eyes, or if you want to change any of the colors of this, I can easily make those adjustments for you. So just let me know, and I'm more than happy to adjust things like eye colors, or if you want to change some of the markings or anything like that, I'm sure I can accommodate any small changes to the picture. I wasn't given any direction on the background, so I kind of just made up my own thing. So I decided to use my symmetry tool to create this feathered border. And then in the background, I've just got some clouds with just a gradient and some clouds that I've added in here, and then just smudged a lot with the smudge tool. Then I decided to adjust the feathers a bit. I didn't think the color quite matched, so I changed them a couple of times. Actually, some really nice colored feathers that ended up appearing when I went through the slider for hue saturation. But in the end, I decided to pick something that would match the eye color to try and tie it all in a bit. So I just end up sort of just saturating the current color a bit more so it has a bit more of a purpley hue. But again, the border of this can be easily changed. So if you want a different colored border, that's super easy for me to do. Just let me know. I'm up to the final touches now, so I just add a white border so that the character stands out from the background. And then I save a couple of different versions. So I save a version with just the character and just the character and the background and the character and the white border. And then right at the end there, I just do a couple of hue changes to just see what it looks like. So yeah, here's my finished picture. Again, really super happy with it, and I hope you are too. Let me know what you think or if you'd like any changes. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. Speaking of patrons, thanks again Zampa for being my very first Patreon. Bye!